Oh man. This is like some twisted ass Saw sequel that people aren't ready for, where we talk about your terrible sports team and you can't escape. What a twisted movie. The only way out of this, Billy has to figure out how to fix the Broncos. He's gonna be trapped here for a while.
We're definitely learning not to say it can't get any worse because it usually does.
Yeah.
Beep beep, sports fans. The Sports Buds are back with your week 3 recap in the NFL. As you can see, people weren't digging my depressed attire last time. Broncos had a humiliating loss, so we changed it up a little bit. How you gentlemen doing? Got Tony Parlay Reyes with us, Nicholas Kerr. Me and Nick were at the game, so we'll start there. Let's start with Dolphins' historic victory against the Denver Broncos. 70 points. 50 points over the Broncos, as it was a 70-20 battle. 5 rushing TDs, 5 passing TDs. I was there. I was live for it. I'll let Nick start out first.
I mean, what an amazing game to be at. I mean, I was happy to be there with you, but I would have never expected what did happen. The way they just kept moving the ball down the field, the only way they were stopped was when they got stopped themselves. When they went for it on 4th down, they couldn't get the 4th and 1. But yeah, just an unbelievable experience, unbelievable atmosphere. Had a great time. I think the Dolphins are still scoring touchdowns right now, though.
Yeah, it was not a great time for those of us wearing a different shade of orange in the stands. But yeah, I mean, great game for the Dolphins. It was definitely a coming out party for them, but it very much is probably like the lowest point the Broncos have ever been at in their franchise, and that's, you never thought you'd be in this moment. I mean, if you think of things like the 59, I believe, 12 game against the Raiders, you just think of the last few years, the way it's gone. You think of the Hackett year, and this year's already started worse than that. So,
hey, it could turn around and turn around quick, because it was, 4 years ago, my first 2 games of the year, losing 59-10 to the Ravens and then 43-0 to the Patriots the following week. It could turn around.
yeah, I don't see that happening anytime soon. I think it's. I've been saying it. There is a losing mentality inside that building, and they just got to change some faces. At this point, I don't even know if Pat Surtain is safe from what potentially could happen if this continues. You hope they bounce back against the Bears this week in the battle of the booty teams, but I don't know. I'm skeptical. We'll talk about that further in the picks, but yep. Beep beep, Broncos fans. Hopefully you're doing something different with your Sundays, because the Broncos ain't it. All right. Since I got to talk about, my depressing day in the NFL, we'll go to Tony's depressing day in the NFL. And no, I'm not talking about the Cowboys. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. One of the most popular stars in Hollywood, watched on as the Chiefs just trounced the Bears 41-10. But the internet just exploded. Taylor Swift in the box with Travis Kelce's parents, and football fans were essentially left explaining the rules of football to Swifties. So, weird day, but Tony, tell us more about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, please.
Why is this happening? Why is this happening? Is there no safe spaces anymore? Football is a safe space. It's supposed to be a sanctuary. How is Taylor Swift invading this? And now we have all these Swifties They're Chiefs fans now, Billings. They're the Travis Kelce jerseys are selling off the chain. It's like the number one fastest selling jersey.
Up 400%.
Everyone, all these Chiefs people, like the Chiefs tickets are going outside the roof now. Like it's insane, and the power of the Swifties, man. I can't explain it, man. Once they're done taking down Ticketmaster, are they gonna take down the Chiefs and Travis Kelce? I don't know how Taylor Swift and this happened. I think that there is a little bit of some PR noise going on, but why? Why and how, man? Why and how?
I'm like, hey, great for them. It is kind of annoying having the NFL overtaken by Taylor Swift and all that noise. To be perfectly honest, I couldn't name a Taylor Swift song. I don't know any off the top of my head. Never really listened, so
I'm sure you've heard plenty.
I'm sure I've heard
everywhere.
them while at the bar.
You just don't know they're her.
I'd probably tell you it was like Carly Rae Jepsen or something instead. Like I have no idea. That's so far outside of my domain. Honestly, I need football fans to explain to me how Taylor Swift fans work. Like I need the opposite. I just feel like there's gonna be an announcement for like a halftime show or something coming up. Like this is what it kind of feels like, but hope it screws over the Chiefs. When people give you those hypothetical situations of, hey, would you win a Super Bowl for like 7 years of pain, and your rival team has like Taylor Swift and the greatest QB ever, and most people are gonna be like, oh yeah, of course. I don't know anymore. I'm starting to question it. So, all right, Nick, any thoughts on Taylor Swift or Travis Kelce?
Hey, good for them. If they need to find love together, let them be.
Hey, great that they found love here in the regular season. Hope they break up in the postseason. All right. So now to some additional topics that make Tony sad. Weekend was full of upsets. As we had multiple underdogs win outright. We had the Texans that stunned the Jags in Duval County, 37-17. We had the Road Colts beating the Ravens by field goal in OT, 22-19. And because of that game, pull it, clip boy. Tony, Gardner Minshew wins. Will you bring back the mustache for us?
Oh, no.
That's a great idea, Chris.
Oh, okay.
I think so.
Wow. If they cover or they win?
They win.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. I'll bring it back if they win.
All right.
I don't think that'll happen.
Yeah, like Tony has to grow out a mustache in honor of Gardner Minshew. We got it on film. It's been documented. How's it looking?
Need some work.
It's coming in.
It's coming in a little bit. It looks better than the man in the clown outfit, but and also, by the way, Gardner Minshew pulled a Dan Orlovsky end zone safety walking out of the end zone. So, hey man, Orlovsky, he's slowly fading away from that memory. Good for him. And then the biggest upset of the weekend, the Arizona Cardinals and their QB Joshua Dobbs beat the Cowboys 28-16 in front of their home crowd that we also dogged on last episode. But Arizona was firmly in control of this whole game. I'll let Tony dive into this a little bit more. He has the details behind it. Tony, tell us why the Cowboys lost to the Cardinals.
I don't know what's going on with that matchup. I did see that the Cardinals have won the last 7 of the last 8 times they played the Cowboys. I don't know what happens when they go into the Mountain Time Zone or whatever against this Cardinals team. They just came into this game unprepared. They had like these backups for the offensive line in there. You could tell they were just like kind of going through the motions, and they thought that they could just they were like, oh, well, we're just going to get this win. We're just going to go in there, going to get this win based on the name. And I think maybe they were still rattled from the Diggs injury earlier in the week in practice, so they were just like overly cautious. but like the play calling, like you could tell he was like, I'm not gonna have Dak throw deep and have any like deep drops with this backup offensive line, and the defense gave up like 200 yards rushing in the first half. They just got gashed, man. Michael Parsons got ran right at, and they just like gashed him in the middle of the field. I don't know, man. That was just a bad performance. And then I don't know if like the red zone problems were as bad as they were. I think even if they converted some in the red zone, they were not going to win that game. Like at no point was I like, the Cowboys are in control, they're going to win this game. I think they got it to like maybe 13-21 or maybe 16-21. That was like the closest they ever came. But the Cardinals, they had a great game plan. Everything that they did worked. They attacked the Cowboys' weaknesses. Josh Dobbs had 4 incompletions the whole game. So they was just shredding that team. Hollywood Brown was just burning them in the secondary. You could tell they missed Diggs. Gilmore was struggling trying to cover Hollywood Brown. So was Deron Bland. Bad game, man. The Cardinals team, they got a lot of fight, man. I think that's what I was like, man, they fight hard the whole game. They're competitive in all these games that they're in. I don't know. That was bad loss for the Cowboys, man. Bad loss.
Turns out Cardinals have a little bit of fire in their belly after all.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't all sell their tickets either. I was surprised. There was a lot of red in that crowd. I was like, what the heck? I thought for sure it was going to be the Cowboys takeover, but no, they were there for that game.
Cardinals fans must know something we don't. Nick, did you have any thoughts on this game?
I mean, to go along with what Tony was saying, that Cowboys defense just didn't look the same way it did over the first 2 weeks. They were, the first 2 weeks, they were all flying around the ball. Anytime the ball even came close to the line of scrimmage, you had like 3-4 guys there, and it just seemed like on Sunday when I rewatched that game, it just wasn't the same defense.
It wasn't. I think it was very much a case of them overlooking their opponent, and I think we said it ourselves last week of, hey, you do the math of how badly the Cowboys beat the Giants, and then the Giants, how badly essentially they beat the Cardinals. And so we thought this was an easy one, and that just shows you any given Sunday in the NFL, unless you're the Denver Broncos, of course. Derek Carr got injured, sprained AC joint. He's announced as week to week, and the Saints blew a 17-point lead against the Packers. Jameis Winston takes over for the Saints, and Jordan Love and the Packers continue to just perform, and I think kind of exceed expectations. So what would you say is the biggest surprise in this game, Tony? That the Saints choked it, or that the Packers just continuing to find ways to win these games?
I think I'm going to have to go with the Packers continuing to find ways to win these games, because they had some gutsy calls to go for 2 in that second half when they were trailing still, and it really seems like it's like an ultimate team there. There's no star on that roster, so it's just like everyone is just like, hey, whatever we can do to help make the play work, and it's just like a really good team when you watch them play. Even when they were down 17-0, you never, like, no one hung their heads, and I was like, wow, okay. And Jordan Love, he's looking good, man. He's looking like he's learning how to play quarterback, surprisingly. So I would say, yeah, the Packers being able to overcome adversity probably my biggest takeaway on that.
The Packers have a pretty definitive game against the Lions this upcoming week. What about you, Nick? Do you think this was more the Saints losing this game, or the Packers just continuing to find ways to win?
I think I'm going to have to agree with Tony on this. It's just the Packers finding ways to win, because I believe they are one of the younger average age teams in the league, and it's just a bunch of young players just finding out how to play together, just finding ways to win.
Nick, I'm going to stay with you. Who would you say is your favorite to win the NFC South right now?
NFC South, I'm still going to go with the New Orleans Saints. I think Jameis Winston going and playing against his former team this week should be able to keep him in it until Carr comes back.
All right. Tony?
It's a great question. I want to say that the Bucks, I can't believe in 16 games or 17 games of that working with Baker. Like I've seen it work only in short spurts. I just don't have faith in it working for a whole season. Even as bad as Desmond Ridder is, I'm still going to stick with the Falcons. I think maybe they bring in Heineke. I think Heineke might be better. He's their backup there. If not him, maybe they trade for someone, but I'm going to stick with the Falcons right now.
We'll find out this week as Bucks and Saints go up head to head, and so I think that'll be one of those battles that's going to be key to whoever wins that division. So, all right, the Steelers injured Jimmy G, the QB for the Raiders. Jimmy G knocked out with concussion. How do you think this affects the Raiders going forward? They've not looked good all season, except in their game against the Broncos, I guess. Like, are the Raiders just a bottom bad team? Like, top 5 bottom bad team, Tony?
I don't think so. I think they're a little bit better than that. I'm very intrigued to watch this Aiden O'Connell guy. He played very well in the preseason for the Raiders. I want to see him get a full game. I think the Steelers just are really good on defense, and the Raiders will bounce back. They'll be a little bit better than they looked on Sunday night against the Steelers.
Nick?
I mean, that game Sunday night wasn't really even as close as the final score, because didn't the Raiders score like 10 points late?
Yeah.
So that was like essentially a blowout. Jimmy G's, I think he had over 300, but most of that was in garbage time when they were just playing from behind. I don't think this Raiders team's very good. They have all the pieces. Like, they have a great running back, a great wide receiver, like the core pieces you would need on offense, but they're just not very good. I think it might be coaching.
It probably is coaching with Josh McDaniels, but I'm saying when you have that kind of skill players in terms of Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs, if they keep this up, they're going to be sellers at the deadline, methinks. So, and I think there's going to be a lot of hungry wide receiver teams out there. So, potential to dump off Devontae Adams and move forward in a different direction.
$30 million price tag.
Yeah.
I think there's teams that would be willing to do it, depending on where they are in this race. So we'll see. All right, the Browns seemingly have a top defense, probably the top defense in the NFL right now. Just shutting down the Titans. Deshaun Watson also had a little bit of a bounce back game as well. Not like I called that or anything, but yeah, Browns defense in terms of just being number one. Like, one stat that stood out to me this week is they're number one in first downs allowed, the Browns defense, with 21. The number 2 team is the Bills with 41. So
wow.
They are just, they are not letting teams get first downs on them. They're not getting third down conversions. Teams are having issue running the ball on them. So they're a great team right now. Tony, thoughts on the Browns defense?
That Browns defense is real good, man. If you really think about it, they probably should have beat the Steelers. I think the Browns defense only gave up like 12 points to the Steelers. The Steelers defense scored all those points to beat the Browns. So that Browns defense really is locked down. Like, you were hyping up Myles Garrett. He is a problem. He is a problem for teams. They have this great combination with, like, I think it's him and Zadarius Jones or something might be on that. I forget his last name. But, man, it's like a power speed combination. Their secondary, Jim Schwartz has really got it dialed up there. They're really putting teams in binds. The Browns defense is going to keep them in a lot of games. They did not seem to be missing Nick Chubb at all in that game. Like, everything just went right through Deshaun Watson, and their run game, they still called all the same plays. So it was pretty interesting to see that.
Nick, thoughts on the Browns being the top defense in the league?
I mean, I haven't watched much of the Browns this year, aside from seeing the occasional clips of Myles Garrett just playing with defense or playing with offenses. So, I mean, from what I've seen, they look good, but I haven't actually been able to watch any of the film on them.
Certainly some pushback to my TJ Watt rankings that we published last week. I guess check that out right here. But yeah, just take a screenshot of this if you're mad right now. Just here you go. Gotta gimme. Bengals and Chargers. Tony, are the Bengals back?
It's a pretty gutsy win against the Rams, but I don't know, man. I don't know how sustainable that is. I felt like there was a lot of emotion going on in that win, and like that whole crowd was, I could feel like they were just like bracing. We were ready because that Monday Night Football curse was happening, and I was like, dude, it's going to be Joe Burrow. We're going to lose Joe Burrow for the season. I know it. And because it didn't happen in the first game with Eagles-Bucks, I could just feel like it was so tense in that game. And they really wanted to beat the Rams. It was a big win for them. I can't say definitively that they're back yet. And then the Chargers tried to lose that game. They literally tried to lose that game in like they went for it on 4th and 1 on their own like 20-yard line, up 4 points with like 2 minutes to go. And I was like, that's pretty damn bold. That's pretty damn bold. And they didn't get it. And somehow they still ended up winning because they stopped Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. So I think that they stay afloat. I don't know how alive they are. I think they barely are staying afloat.
Bengals seeming to be having some resurgent efforts due to their defense and kicking game. Not like we've ever seen that from them before. But no, I have way more faith in the Bengals, just what I've seen in the past with them. And just like I said, seeing what you see from their defense, from their special teams game. The Chargers, they still had issues, and they still almost lost to an 0-3 team, no matter what you might think of the Vikings. So Chargers still just have a lot of red flags around them. Yes, they have an opportunity for a bounce back this week against the backup QB in Las Vegas, but also Chargers are going to charge. If they lost to the Raiders this week, I don't think too many people around the NFL would be entirely surprised.
Not at all.
Yeah. Nick, did you have any thoughts on the Bengals or the Chargers?
I mean, the Bengals are just going to go as far as Joe Burrow is going to take them. And right now, he does not look comfortable planning off that back foot. So for the Bengals aerial attack to be there, they need a healthy Joe Burrow. So I think at this point, they're just, I don't know.
Hey,
I don't think they're back yet.
Everyone survived Monday Night Football.
Yes.
At least there was that. All right. We have some QB situations in the league right now. The Jets are big time in dire straits with their QB situation. I think I might have said on one of our shows that Zach Wilson's going to be better than any Joe Blow off the street. Might have been wrong with that. Maybe Joe Blow has some moves that Zach Wilson clearly does not. So and everything I've seen, like he's basically statistically the worst quarterback that's played in the league the last decade. I think Josh Rosen slightly above him. So we'll start with the Jets. Like, what do they do? I'll go with you, Nick.
I mean, honestly, at this point, I don't know what they can do. They need to give some other people. I mean, they just signed Trevor Siemian?
Yes.
Who else is on their roster right now? Who was the backup behind Zach?
Trevor Siemian?
Yeah, that's so. I think they're gonna have to go with the Zach Wilson experiment at least until their bye week, until Trevor Siemian can get at least a little up to speed with this offense. So, got another tough one this week.
Yeah, it'll be another tough one for them. They have an opportunity in week 5 against the Broncos to bounce back, though, so never know. Tony, what do you think the Jets should do?
It's tough, man. It's really tough because Hackett is not the best offensive coordinator, as I'm sure you're aware. And Zach Wilson is like I would talk about Herbert playing like a coward. Zach Wilson was like afraid to throw the ball against Bill Belichick in that defense on Sunday. He was like cowering. He was so scared. So I think they're just going to bring in anyone to play quarterback other than him because he's not he's too scared. Like he doesn't want to make a mistake and he just doesn't have it. Like you said, terrible stats, worse than Josh Rosen.
Yeah, maybe they should start running the Wildcat. Put
They
Dalvin
could
Cook
potentially,
and Breece Hall back there. They might come up with something.
I think Trevor Siemian not start this week, but I think he makes an appearance this week, starts next week against the Broncos. And then that just continues our downward spiral when Trevor Siemian ultimately beats us. And we just continue to have agonizing pain. So speaking of pain, agonizing pain, who is the worst team in football right now? We'll start actually on a kind of a different topic. We all thought it was the Cardinals. Why did everyone just kind of jump on that the Cardinals were tanking? And I'll start with you, Tony.
I think it was like some media perception because they got rid of Isaiah Simmons, who was like a top 10 draft pick. And everyone was like, oh, why are they getting rid of this guy who's like top 10? Even though he wasn't good. He was never good for the Cardinals, even though he was a top 10 pick. And they just like traded him for nothing. Everyone was like, oh, they must be tanking. But like, if you look at their games, they're not tanking. They're like trying and competitive in all of those games. And like, we all made fun of freaking, what's his name? The head coach, I think, is this Gannon?
Jonathan Gannon.
About his fire in the gut speech. And we were like memeing him up. And like, that's how that guy actually is. And that team is like responding to that because it's a lot of like hungry players. So I don't know, man. I think it was weird. It was like something that wasn't actually reflected in reality, more like a perception thing.
And I'd say they probably knew that they had something in Joshua Dobbs that the rest of us didn't, clearly. That was it for me when they announced that they're starting Joshua Dobbs. I was like, why? I mean, I'd say as of right now, he's played better than Colt McCoy probably would have played for him. So I'm 100% on board with that decision. Nick, your thoughts on the Cards?
I mean, it was all the media perception, like Tony was saying. They made us think that this Cards team was just going to tank. And with Kyler Murray missing the beginning of the season, we just all assumed that they were just going to go for the number one pick. But I don't think that's the case. They are fighting.
Yeah. So there's only 3 0-3 teams in the NFL right now: the Panthers, the Bears, and the Broncos. Nick, I'll stay with you. Who's the worst team in the NFL?
I'm gonna go with the Bears, and simply because they don't know how to use Justin Fields. Justin Fields is not a sit in the pocket type quarterback, and they don't call any design runs for him. So I believe that the Bears right now, because their coaching is dysfunctional with what the weapons they have, I think they're the worst team in the NFL right now.
Whatever's going on with their defensive coordinator or former defensive coordinator at the moment, and then their decision to not roll with a new defensive coordinator basically just came out and said, we don't need that position. So that was a little weird. Tony, who's the worst team in football?
I'm going to say the Panthers, man. His name is Frank Reich. We know the name of the coach now, but you guys suck. You're a really, really bad team. They looked a little bit more competent with Andy Dalton in against Seattle, but they gave up all these picks to get Bryce Young. And even when Bryce Young was playing in there, it just, I don't see a plan with that team. They look bad in a bad division. I don't really see how they're going to beat any teams maybe later on in the season, but they look bad. I don't know. Panthers got a lot of red flags for me.
I'm going to say the Broncos. Like Bears, there's a lot of dysfunction just inside and outside of their locker room at the moment, but I think they could potentially be galvanized around it. I think that you could have a situation with them like you had with the Raiders. Last year, a couple years ago, where basically they had all these off-field issues. Gruden got fired. So yeah, 2 years ago,
Yeah, it was 2021. Yeah.
they had all these issues, and then Bisaccia came in and coached for them, and they still made it to the playoffs. So I think you could see that potentially with the Bears. All this negative noise galvanizes them. As for the Panthers, I think that's just a young team that's learning to come together. And I think, to use kind of a baseball analogy, later in the season, they're gonna start gluing together with some of these younger talent, and they're gonna rattle off some wins, I think, that people don't expect. And so I think that leaves the Broncos where it's just, they should be better. Their coach made a lot of noise in the offseason. Players probably thought it was different. I think eventually you're going to have a lot of sniping between players, coaches, etc. It's going to be a circular firing squad because it's just toxic over there right now. And I think that's going to be their downfall. And they're going to end up being the worst team in the NFL this year. More so than the Bears, more so than the Panthers, or the Vikings, or the Jets, or the Cardinals. That's my thoughts on that. So that's our week 2 recap. I can take off the clown makeup now and move on. Basketball season starts in 2 weeks. Thank you, Sports Budz, for joining us. Check us out with our power rankings, winners and losers, and our pick'ems for week 4. Goodbye, beautiful people. For Nick Kerr, Tony Reyes, I'm Chris Billings. Good night.
Thanks for watching the Sports Budz. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe.